They say a home does not collapse because of wind. It collapses when wisdom goes silent. A house can have fine walls, a fine roof, fine furniture, but if the pillar of justice is built on the silence of a wise woman, that home is already in danger. There was once an old man named Arthur and his wife, Mary. Arthur was steady as an oak, slow to anger, quick to forgive. Mary was a queen of the soil, a black woman with hands that could plant a seed and raise a nation. For 50 years, the two of them lived like a calm river, sometimes noisy, but always flowing together. They worked hard, those two. Mary's hands knew the language of soil and sacrifice, and Arthur's back knew the weight of responsibility. In their early years, the house was loud with hope, but quiet with waiting. For a long time, a child did not come. They prayed, they tried, they waited, until waiting became part of the furniture. Then, like rain after a stubborn dry season, one child finally came, a son. They raised him with love and with strong discipline. And when he became a man, work carried him far away. So the house returned to its two original voices again, Arthur's steady calm and Mary's deep, silent wisdom. And in that silence, some things were never explained. Some things were simply kept. But Mary had a secret. In their bedroom closet sat one faded shoebox, quiet, ordinary, the kind of thing you would never notice twice. Mary told Arthur, "Never open it. If you love me, let the box sleep." Arthur obeyed. He was the kind of husband who feared trouble more than poverty. He knew a simple truth. The man who pokes his nose into a silent pot often finds hot pepper. So for 50 years, he stayed away, even when curiosity danced in his head like a stubborn mosquito. Years passed, and time did what time always does. Mary's steps became slower. Her laughter came less often. At first, it was small things, a pause before standing, a hand pressed to her ribs, a breath that came shorter than yesterday. Then one day, Mary fell ill. Not the loud kind of sickness, the quiet kind, the kind that slowly moves a person from the kitchen to the bedroom and keeps them there. So Mary began to spend more days in bed, and Arthur, steady Arthur, became her carer. He cooked, he cleaned, he warmed water, he adjusted pillows, he watched her sleep, he held her hand through long nights. Yet even then, he never touched that shoebox. Because love is not only flowers. Sometimes love is obedience. Then the day came when Mary's breath grew thin, and her voice became small, like candlelight in the wind. She called Arthur close and whispered, "Arthur, the box. Bring it down. It is time for light to touch the secret." Arthur's fingers trembled as he opened it. His eyes widened. Inside, resting on a mountain of cash, were two small hand-crocheted dolls. Just two, neat, pretty, innocent looking, like they were minding their business and waiting for someone to notice. Arthur blinked, like a man who had just seen a fish driving a car. "Mary, what is this?" Mary's eyes still sparkled, even in weakness. "Arthur, my love, listen well. On our wedding day, my grandmother gave me yarn and a crochet needle. She said, 'Mary, this is the secret to a long, peaceful marriage. Whenever your husband annoys you, ignores you, or makes your blood boil, don't argue, don't shout, just go into the room and crochet one doll.'" Arthur's chest rose like a proud rooster. He stared at the two lonely dolls and almost started clapping for himself. "Oh, Mary, my sweet, patient Mary. In 50 years, only two dolls? That means I only annoyed you 2 times. Ha! I am the most wonderful husband to ever wear trousers." He stood taller. Even his belly seemed to salute. Mary let out a slow, cheeky chuckle, the kind that warns a man to sit down. "Arthur, honey, don't crown yourself king too fast." Arthur froze mid-smile. "What do you mean, sugar? There are only 2 dolls right here." Mary gave him one last wink, the kind that could humble a whole parliament. Arthur, those are just the two I finished this morning. The $95,000 in that box? That is the money I made from selling all the other dolls, the ones I had to crochet over the last 50 years. Arthur sat in shock, and suddenly he understood something. When a man thinks he's the head of the house, he forgets the woman is the neck, and the neck can turn that head toward the market for a profit. Not long after that laughter, Mary's breathing became thinner, and then she slipped away. Mary died. After Mary passed, the house became an empty shell, and the roof was just a hat for a ghost. Arthur's heart grew heavy, like wet cloth. Every morning he sat by the window, staring at the road, as if Mary might walk back in. Beside him sat Solomon, the large ginger cat, quiet and watchful. The kettle boiled without conversation. The curtains hung without laughter. Arthur lived inside a museum of grief, waiting for the dust to tell him where to go next. One afternoon, as Arthur sat by the window with Solomon, there was a knock at the door. Outside, his son was still by the car, locking it, checking his pockets, while Maya knocked, like she owned the timetable. His son arrived like a stressed businessman, the kind always living on a deadline. With him was a 10-year-old girl named Maya. She was mixed race, brilliant, and her eyes looked like they were always calculating something. He spoke quickly, like a man dropping luggage at the airport. "Dad, her mother can't manage right now, and I'm always on a plane. She's 10, she's a genius, and she's staying here. I'll be back." Then he left, and the quiet house gained a hurricane with a ponytail. Maya didn't just enter the house, she audited it. She stared at the kitchen and said, "Grandpa, why are the plates stacked like they're waiting for an accident?" Arthur opened his mouth to answer, but Maya had already started arranging things by most used to least used. Solomon, the big ginger cat, watched her, squinted, and gave one small mop, like, this child will cause policy changes. Every morning, Maya held Arthur's hand for the walk to the school nearby. She fixed his collar, brushed lint off his coat, and even wiped a small stain off his shirt with the urgency of a detective cleaning evidence. "Grandpa, you're not dressing well," she said. "You look coffee." Arthur muttered, "In my time, children didn't do this." Maya replied, "In your time, Grandpa, people also fell down because their shoelaces were proud." Then she knelt and tied his lace properly. On those walks, Maya asked questions that made adults sweat. "Grandpa, why do people pay tax but still complain that nothing works?" Arthur cleared his throat. "That's life." Maya continued, "Also, why do some people talk like wisdom is free but behave like sense is expensive?" Arthur looked around to see if anyone heard. Solomon glanced at Arthur like, "Answer carefully, we live here." At school, Maya's teachers called her Little Professor on day 1. She finished her maths worksheet in 5 minutes, then wrote extra notes at the bottom. "Your question 4 has 2 solutions if you don't specify constraints." The teacher stared at it like it was witchcraft. Even the class bully didn't know whether to fear her or hire her. But genius can bring trouble, the way rain brings mud. One day in assembly, Maya raised her hand and asked, loud and clear, "Sir, if the school is fundraising for computers, why did we buy a new signboard last month? Is the signboard going to teach us coding?" The whole hall went quiet. The head teacher's smile froze. That afternoon, Arthur received a call. "Mr. Arthur, please come to the school. Your granddaughter is highly intelligent." Maya sat in the office, calm as a judge. On the walk home, Arthur tried to scold her gently. Maya nodded seriously and said, "Okay, Grandpa, next time I will ask privately, with evidence and graphs." Solomon meowed sharply like, "Graphs? This one is dangerous." Arthur sighed, but inside he felt a strange pride. Mary's spirit was not gone. It had simply found new shoes. Back home, Maya tried to wash Solomon. Solomon's eyes widened in horror. Maya negotiated like a lawyer. Only pause, Solomon, just pause. She used a small warm towel and cleaned gently. Solomon allowed it, then strutted away like, I accepted this treaty because I am generous. One evening, Arthur found Maya reading 2 books at once, one upside down, like her brain had 2 channels. She looked up and said casually, Grandpa, this house has a secret. I can feel it. Arthur's heart paused. Solomon stopped licking his paw and stared at Arthur like, don't talk, don't spoil it. Arthur sat down slowly. Maya, your grandma Mary was a woman of wisdom. She left something behind. Maya's eyes lit up. For me? Arthur nodded, then raised a finger. Yes, but it comes with time. It's not something a child carries. Arthur brought out an old sealed envelope, written in Mary's handwriting. Across it were bold words, for Maya, open only with Arthur present. Maya swallowed. Arthur opened it and read, voice shaking. My little Maya, I left you 3 gifts, each tied to a milestone, because wisdom must ripen before it is eaten. Arthur continued reading. Gift 1. When Maya turns 19 and she has finished college or university, Arthur will give her the first box, something to help her stand on her own feet. Gift 2. When she graduates and shows discipline, Arthur will give her the second box, something to build her future. Gift 3. When she marries, if she chooses marriage, and learns what love costs, Arthur will give her the final box, not for showing off, but for protecting her home and her heart. Maya whispered, 3 boxes? Arthur nodded. 3. Maya leaned forward. So, where are they? Arthur shook his head. Mary tied it to time. Solomon gave one long meow that sounded like, yes, respect the deadlines. Arthur added, and there are rules. Nobody talks about it outside this house. Nobody touches what they're not ready for. And your father must not use your inheritance to solve adult problems. Maya frowned. Why would he do that? Arthur sighed. Because pressure makes people forget manners. The next day, Maya made a mistake. At school, she casually told a friend, my grandma left me something, like a legacy. Her friend's eyes widened. Is it money? Maya panicked. No, it's books, educational books. Within minutes, the playground was buzzing. When Maya got home, Solomon sat at the doorway like a bouncer and stared at her without blinking. Maya whispered, don't judge me. Solomon made a sound that wasn't even a meow. It was more like, That night, Maya wrote a small speech. The next day, she stood up and announced, everyone, I don't have money. I have a plan. If you want a legacy, build one. Start with your homework. The teachers clapped. Later, the head teacher told Arthur, your granddaughter is trouble, but she's also leadership. Arthur smiled gently. That's Mary's spirit. It's just wearing smaller shoes. And Solomon flicked his tail like, welcome to episode 2. Then one night, trouble came sniffing around the fence. Maya heard whispers outside. 2 men murmuring about Mary's gold and the old man's secret box. Arthur's hands began to shake. Solomon's tail puffed up like a warning sign. But Maya didn't panic. She adjusted her glasses and spoke in a low, firm voice, too disciplined for 10 years old. Grandpa, go to your room, lock the door, stay quiet. Arthur tried to protest, but Maya lifted one finger like a tiny commander. Now. Solomon stared at her like, who taught you command voice? Maya picked up the phone and called the police, giving the address clearly, describing what she heard, then whispering, they're at the fence. They're trying the gate. The men tried to force their way in, expecting fear and confusion. Instead, the house answered them with noise and confusion, the kind that makes criminals lose confidence. A chair scraped, a pot clanged. Solomon launched a furious ginger performance, hissing, swatting, moving like the landlord had come to evict them personally. The thieves stumbled back, slipping, bumping into each other, like villains in a comedy film, suddenly unsure whether they were robbing a house or being judged by a cat. By the time the police arrived, fast, lights washing the street, the big thieves looked like two tired goats that had fought a staircase and lost. Later, one officer shook his head and said, "When we took the call, we heard a child's voice, but she spoke like a trained adult." The next morning, the neighborhood woke up to gossip that tasted sweet. People said, "It was that little girl. She didn't scream. She didn't run outside. She stayed sharp and called for help." The local paper carried a headline like prophecy, "The Little Commander, How a 10-Year-Old Secured the Pillar of Justice." At school assembly, the atmosphere was electric. Officers arrived. Then the police general stepped forward, medals clinking, voice booming. In this neighborhood, many adults talk about safety, but it took a 10-year-old girl to protect a home with sense and courage. Maya didn't try to fight grown men. She did something smarter. She kept her grandfather safe and called us with calm, clear information. Because of that, we arrived in time. Maya, we honor you today. But her father saw the news and panicked. He hired a helper through an agency, a kind and capable lady, to handle the heavy cooking and cleaning, so Maya wouldn't feel she had to be the guard, the chef, and the engineer. Under the helper's care, the pillars of the house stood stronger. Still, Maya stayed in the kitchen like an apprentice. She watched closely, learned quietly, then politely suggested improvements like, "Auntie, if you cut onions this way, you cry 30% less." The helper laughed. This child. 3 days later, her father arrived, eyes red from worry, pride wrestling fear. He sat at the table as a feast was laid out. Solomon sat in his usual place of honor, watching steam rise with royal interest. The father looked at Maya and said, "Maya, I saw the helmet and the t-shirt. My heart nearly stopped. I'm proud of you. You did the right thing. You kept Grandpa safe, and you called the police. That was smart." He knelt to her level. "But listen, I don't want you managing danger alone. Even if you don't fight, even if you're calm, your body is still a child. Next time, you lock the door, you call the police, and you call me or a trusted adult immediately. Don't carry that weight by yourself." Atta added, voice gentle but firm, "Little professor, a bird that flies too close to fire will lose feathers. We are telling you this because you are our treasure." Maya's face fell into a deep 10-year-old pout. "But I studied threat response," she said. "I had a plan. I wanted to punish them for thinking we were weak." Solomon meowed once, sharply, like, "Punish? Madam, we are not a superhero franchise." Her father smiled and brought out boxes. He opened them to reveal gowns that shimmered like a summer garden. Maya's pout melted. She twirled in dress after dress as the family clapped. Then her father produced a small gold crown with crystals. He placed it gently on her head and whispered, "This morning the world saw a commander, but tonight your family sees a princess." Maya's smile returned, bright enough to light the room. She understood something bigger than fame. Newspapers can praise you, but family protects you. As they ate, laughter filled the house like fresh paint. Arthur watched Maya and thought of Mary, of secrets, of wisdom, of quiet strength, and he realized the strongest pillar in any kingdom is love that refuses to let one soul stand alone. So we remember the proverb, a house is built by hands, but a home is preserved by the heart. The roof that was once a hut for a ghost became shelter for living joy. And if you listen carefully at night, you might hear Solomon purring like a satisfied elder, and Maya whispering over her homework, planning to fix the world. One question, one correction, one clean collar at a time. The story is told, the feast is finished, and when the family stands together, the body politic is finally at rest.